So first we see the GRC approach. So we are talking about, from a couple of minutes, we are talking about governance, risk, compliance. What is this governance? What is this risk? What is this compliance? We'll talk about that first. So if you take any company, if you take example of Ford company, their strategies, goals and objectives, policies and procedures, nothing but running the business. Okay. Yeah. Their policies, procedures, goals and objectives. Okay. This is called governance. And any company, by following their strategies, their goals and objectives, their policies and procedures, every company, let's say Ford is running their business, when they're, even we keep some business, we kept some business. So risk will be there in any organization. Even we start small business, risk will be there in the business. So when a risk is there, how we can manage that risk? What we have to do when a risk is there, we have to identify, we have to analyze, and we have to profile that risk. We have to respond to that risk. We have to keep on monitoring this risk. Okay, and then how? Let's say if we have a risk, what we need to do? We need to define some process, some controls and activities to control that risk. So any company, they are running the business, risk will be there. When they have a risk, they have to control that to comply. So that is called governance, risk, compliance. This is nowadays, this is one of the department you can see in every company. Long back it was not there, but now every company started this governance, risk, compliance, especially for audit compliance, audit. So this is about a governance, risk, compliance. I'll give an example. This is one of the real example I have seen. I was working with one of the customer. So what they were doing, every company nowadays auditing is mandatory. The risk is on top. Initially, the company risk is on top. Risk in the sense, in user level, role level, they have many conflicting transactions. So when they have many risks in that organization, they have recruited some people before auditing, and they started removing the conflicting transactions in the role level, user level, and then they pressed down. Since they don't have any proper tools like a GRC, again, once auditing completed, again they started assigning the different conflicting access to the different
users or roles. The risk went up, and again they will bring that risk down before audit. It's a keep on zigzag manner. So with that, what is going to happen? They are going to spend the cost every time, and they are losing the money. So this is happening. If they don't follow the governance compliance, this will be happening. They will be wasting their money, and risk will be increasing, and the time will be, they are losing the time. So always keep on, they need to invest something and spending some time. So other than that, if they start using the tools like a GRC, initially risk is on top, and then they brought the risk down by using the tool, and then continuously will keep a monitor, and they will control the risk. So this is the main thing. So risk is on top when they started, before they start the GRC. Once they started GRC, risk went down and it stabilized here like this. This is the main advantage if any company is following good governance practice. Okay. And so this GRC tool, sorry. So this GRC tool it can be applicable for all the type of business, different industries like life science, high tech, chemical, utilities, oil, gases, consumer business, all the type of industries can be used. And especially one advantage, more advantage in GRC. GRC is not only meant for SAP. Some companies, they are not using SAP. They may be using Oracle, PeopleSoft, or JD Edward, other enterprise ERP components. Even though they are using other components, non-SAP products in their organization, GRC can be used to maintain a good governance compliance. So GRC is not only SAP. It's not only used for SAP. It can be used for non-SAP products also to maintain a good governance compliance. So in this result, there are several benefits company is going to get if they start using this governance, if they have started using good governance practices. So increase the shareholder value with the good governance, optimize risk return portfolio, reduce the GRC costs, improve the business performance and predictability, business sustainability, and greater business agility. These are the benefits every organization is going to get it if they start using this GRC tool. Okay, and next what we are going to do, we are going to see the core GRC component, SAP GRC component. As of now, we talked about the governance risk compliance department, what their activities, why they brought it, what is SOX and GRC, SOD. Now we are jumping into GRC tool, SAP GRC. So in that we have a couple of solutions. If you can see here, these are the solutions we have it. One is the access control, second is the process control, third one risk management, fourth one content lifecycle management. These are the four components we have it in GRC. Out of these four, access control is doing good in market. Process control, nowadays people started using. And risk management and content lifecycle management, it's not picking up as of now. So very less people are using. But for us, we are going to learn access controls completely end to end. So process control, completely different course content. So and there are also security people. This is required. If you are keeping your profile with the SAP Security with the GRC, this is required. We are from security. What we do, we handle access things. So that's why for us access control is important. So in our entire content, post content, we are going to talk about the access control. So there are different things: process control, risk management, and content lifecycle management. Those are the different things. So in access control also we have four segregations again. If you see here, four segregations we have it, which you can see here right side. So when as I told you initially, GRC product. This is the VOSA company, VOSA Corporation of India, that company product. So we brought this from VOSA. We have a version called 5.2, GRC 5.2. In the GRC 5.2, these are the names. Under access control, we have four components. In these four components, which you can see right side, these are the 5.2 version names: access enforcer, role expert, compliance calibrator, firefighter. These are the GRC 5.2 version names. And then these names change like this. Access control change it to compliant user provisioning. Role expert change it to enterprise role management. Compliance calibrator is changed to risk analysis and remedy. Firefighter change it to super user privilege management. So don't need to remember all these things. Just now remember only the things which are there in the board, like access request, business role management, access risk analysis, emergency access management. So these are only which you can see in a board. These names only you need to remember. So these are the 5.2 version names.
The 5 version which are bolded, these are GRC 10, 10.1 and 12. These are the versions. In these recent versions, they are not changing the names. Okay, these are the names. So in our total entire content, we are going to talk about access control. Inside the access control, we have a couple of components like access requests, business role management, access risk analysis, emergency access management. All these four components we are going to cover in our entire content, post content. So here, one thing in ECC, when you are learning ECC security, what you are doing, we have a predefined transactions like SV01, PFCG, different transactions. You will go and use those transactions to create the users to SV01 to create the roles. You will use a PFCG, something like. GRC is not like that. GRC, it's not a pre-built system. Base people do the installation and they will hand over the system to us. We have to configure a GRC system based on the customer requirements. So this is completely different. It's not like ECC. You can see somewhat in ECC, but here ECC we have not done any configuration things before we go to the user creation or role creation or something. That's a predefined system. SAP has defined everything. They are given us some transaction we are using. But in GRC is not like that. GRC, we need to do the configuration based on that before we start, before we like basically they will just they will install the system and they will hand out to us. Once they hand out, we have to configure the system based on the customer requirement. So that's the reason here in our content, post content, what we are going to cover, we are going to cover a GRC configuration as well as a GRC support. When you go into the market, when you keep your profile in the market for a job, they will ask you two things. Have you worked on configuration or only worked on support part of GRC? So it's good if you learn a GRC configuration as well as support part. So that will be advantage. You will have more weightage if you might have worked in a configuration also. So in our total course, we are going to cover a GRC configuration part as well as a support part for all these four components. So yeah. So first, what I will do, I'll talk about architecture. Yeah. This is the GRC old version, 5.2, 5.3 architecture. So we talked about the four components now. The four components. This is the GRC box. This is the yellow box is the GRC box. This is the Java system. In olden days, when we were using a 5.2 and 5.3 version, nobody is using. Already, I'm just giving example. No need to worry. Just nobody is using 5.2, 5.3. SAP already stopped the support for this. Across the world, nobody is using 5.2 and 5.3. So we no need to talk about this also. But I'm giving a glance like what was there, what is there now. If I can if I can show the difference, so that if somebody asks you, you can explain. So in 5.2 and 5.3, GRC system is a Java system. Now our EC system is a ABAP system. Like GRC system is not a ABAP system, this is a Java system in olden days. So inside this GRC system, we'll have these four components. To maintain good governance practice in our ECC, or BI, or SRM, CRM, HR, what we used to do, this ECC system will connect to GRC system through RTA RFC connection, SLD. So much a big process we have if we want to connect one GRC system, sorry, system with a GRC. So much of complication process is there. And this is a Java system. Okay. So at the time, what we need to do, we have, since we have 4 components here, I have to make one RFC connection to this from the same system, another RFC connection, another connection, another connection, something like that. So, and sometimes if GRC system went down suddenly, we may need to restart the ECC AI system also. ECC is our real system where the business is running. If you restart the system, how much business impact we are going to have it? So much of complications we have it when we have a GRC 5.2 and 5.3 Java system. Now what happened? They have simplified the architecture, quite simple. So nowadays, so let's say this is our GRC system. Okay. Inside this GRC system, we have 4 components. This is one component, and this is another component. This is another component. So these are the 4 components we have. And let's say here we have a ECC, we have a BI, we have a CRM, we have a SRM, something like that. I'll just name it. This is the GRC system. This is ECC. This is BI. This is HR. So this may be SRM or something like that. So in olden days, when this GRC system is a Java system, if we want to connect this GRC system, EC system with the GRC, I have to make a multiple connections like this. From the same system, multiple connections I used to maintain. And also here I have to do the SLD configuration, I have to do the C. So number of complications are there. It's a long back. So now it's quite simple. Nothing. So this is entire, this is the GR system, one simple RFC connection with this system, and another simple RFC connection with this system. One simple connection, that's enough. So quite simple nowadays, connecting a GRC system with ECC or BI or CRM, because these are a web system nowadays. Previously GRC is a Java system. This is also a web. Okay, so that's the reason. So this is architecture. So it's quite simple in the GRC 10 plus versions, 10.0, 10x, like that may be GRC 10, 10.1 or 12, any version. So it's a quite simple connecting a GRC system with the ECC system. Olden days, it's a quite complication. If a GRC system went down, we may need to restart this ECC or AI or something like that. So these are the 4 components what we have it, access control 4 components what we have it in GRC. Now what we are going to do in our entire content, we are going to talk about these 4 components which are there in GRC. First we will see the configuration, how we can connect our EC system with the GRC system, and then how we can maintain a rule books and different components talk about a different set of activities. All these we are going to see further. So this is architecture, and I'm going back to the PPT again. So first I will take one component, access risk analysis, and then I'll explain you what is there in that component. As I mentioned you, in a GRC access control we have 4 components. These are the 4 components which we have boarded. Now I'm going to talk about each and every component. What is the importance of that component? And then you will understand. So first I am going to talk about access risk analysis. So access risk analysis is a capability, fully automated rule-based audit and SOD analysis tool used to analyze, resolve the audit issues related to regulatory compliance. So So the main important of this tool is we have thousands of users, thousands of roles in a system. Okay. So what we can do, we can analyze and we can resolve any risks which are there within the roles or within the users. Like James is having 10 roles inside his ID. Any transaction, conflicting transactions are there with his access. That can we find that in a EC system? If any user is having any risk, can we find that by using any of the transaction in ECC? No, we don't have that option. We have to use a GRC tool. That can happen by using this risk analysis. So here the main thing, enable all key stakeholders to work in a collaborative manner to achieve ongoing risk audit compliance. So main thing, every company will go for audit, internal and external audit, every hourly, quarterly or yearly. So when they went for audit, they will check all this. Whether our access things are good within compliance, users, roles, profiles, or objects are compliance or not. Do we have any conflicting access or within the users, within the roles? That we can find out. So here what will happen in the GRC, this component, access risk analysis component, we will create a rule book. Rule book in the sense, I just explained this with one example. Rule book or rule set, we will call it. Let's say inside our rule book, what they do, they will keep a risk, different risk. Risk 1, risk 2, risk 3 or something like that. What is this risk 1? ME21N, ME28, ME21N, MIGO, SU01, PFCG, something like that. They will, different risks will be there in different. Risk is nothing but giving a ME21 and 28 access within the same role or within the same user. That's called risk. Giving ME21 and MIGO transaction access to the same role or same user, that is risk. SU01 and PFCG within the same role or same user, that is risk. So like this, different risks we will create in a system, GRC system. So all these risks will club into the rule book. We'll make this rule book name as a Ford rule book. If you are working with a Ford, we'll make that rule book name called Ford. So all based on this rule book in our system, in our ECC or BI or any system, we can find out risk. Like any user is having any risk within the rules or users. Okay, that can be done by using this first component, access risk analysis component. So what we do, main thing here, rule book. So the rule book will vary from organization to organization. Some companies, this is the risk, but other companies, this may not be the risk. We will be creating a different risks, and all these risks, we don't know. We are from security. What are the conflict transactions? ME21, ME28 is a conflicting. Do we know that? Are we from MM team? We don't know. This business has to give a requirement. Audit team, ourselves, and the MM guys, SD guys, PP guys, finance guys, we all sit together. They will confirm us these two transactions are risk, these two transactions are risk, something like that. They will confirm us. Once they confirm, we are going to create a rule book with a different set of risks. And this rule book we will keep into the GRC system. Tomorrow onwards, once you create the rule book, so next time onwards, if you want to find out any risks which are there in the user level, role level,
By using this four rule book, you can find out the risks within a user level and role level. That's a main thing, fundamental thing which is there in a GR system. Simply they kept one rule book in a system. Based on that rule book they have created based on a audit compliance, and then based on the audit rule book, we will keep on trying to find out. Let's say we are talking about the troubleshooting previously. User will raise a request. I need access to MA21. You should not blindly go and find the role and assign to the user. Even you found the role, you should not blindly assign that role. Before you assign that role, let's say James is already having a 10 roles in his ID. Now he raised a request to give access to another one role or two roles. So with existing 10 rows, he might be having a 20 transactions. Now he requested to get access to another role or another key code. You have found the role, but you should not blindly assign. You have to check, if I assign this, is it going to give any risk for this James? As of now, James is not having any risk within his ID. He is not having any conflicting access within his ID. If I assign this new role to James, is it going to give any risk with the existing access? With existing access, he has a 20 T codes. Now he is getting access to another 2 T codes. These 2 T codes are going to conflict with any of the existing 20 transactions which he is holding. That we can check. That we can call it as a risk analysis in GRC. By using that risk analysis, here in a GRC tool, we can find the risks which are there within the user, within the role, or within the group of users, group of profiles. That also we can find it. So the main thing, this component is a completely rule-based tool, rule-based audit compliance tool. Inside the rules, we will keep a risk. Based on that risk and rule book, we can find out a risks which are there in a user level and role level, profile level, user group level. We can do that. And also, when we are talking SAP security, I was given you some set of critical transactions and critical object list. So those what I told you, keep in mind these transactions and these objects in your mind. If anybody asks you, you can't give it blindly something that was I was told you. But if we have a GRC tool, these critical transactions, critical objects, critical roles and profiles also we can define in a system, GRC system. These are the critical roles, these are the critical profiles, these are the critical objects or something like that. If you define in a GRC system, automatically if any user asks for that particular access, you don't need to apply our mind. So like list of GRC2, list of critical transactions, objects, those you don't need to keep in your mind. Simply when user is trying to get access to any critical object or critical T code or critical role or critical profile, simply system itself, it will say, no, you are trying to assign this critical role or critical T code object access. As per SOX compliance or SOD, it cannot be assigned. Something like that, it will give a warning. That's also we can make it here. And with the installation, when you install a GRC system, with the installation, SAP what they are doing, they are giving a standard rule book, like their own rule book. SAP they prepared the rule book with a different risks like this for a different modules. They are based on a general audit process, based on a SOX compliance and SOD. SAP they are giving a predefined rule book. It's up to the organizations. If you are working in a Ford, if you want to use SAP standard rule book, you can use it. Or your organization is having a different risk, different sensitive areas. So in that case, you may not be able to use a
SAP standard rulebook. Yes, and you can maintain. So instead of that, you can make your own rulebook also. So here the main rulebook concept will be there. Based on the rulebook only, we can find out the risk. And here one thing, even though it is a risk, let's say example here, giving a SUG and access and PFCG access to the same person is risk as per SOX compliance. But nobody is following. How they are not following? They prepare some mitigation controls. Even though it is risk, they are going to bypass this risk by mitigating, by applying some controls. That concept also we have it here in GRC. Even though it is a risk, we can bypass that risk by applying some mitigation controls. So that's also one more concept we have it. So all these things we are going to discuss one by one topic. I'm just giving a demo. What is there in this component? What we do? That's what I'm trying to cover. So I just rewind this first component, access risk analysis. This is completely rule-based tool to find out risks to fulfill our compliance. What we can find out risks which are there in the user level, role level, object level risk we can find out. And in the system itself, we can define some critical, critical T codes, object roles. Based on that, system automatically finds. Now, automatically it will give alert if anybody is trying to get access to critical transactions or objects. So SAP, with installation, SAP will provide a standard rule set. It's up to the organization whether they are going to use the SAP standard rule set, or how SAP build the rule set. They keep in mind that all the type of organizations like chemical business, pharma business, real estate business, consumer business, and IT industry, by keeping all the organizations in the mind, they prepared the standard rulebook SAP. But that's a very vast rulebook, SAP standard rulebook. So our company is an automobile industry. We don't want all those risks. We want only certain risks. In that case, we can prepare our own rulebook to our Ford company. Okay. So this is all about, like, even though if user is having any risk, we can bypass that risk by applying some controls that we can call it as a mitigation controls. So I just give an example here. This is about to just demo what is there in the component, and we'll see later when we go into the system, one by one set of activities, configuration and support activities you will see, so that you will be more clear there. This is about first component. And second component, emergency access management. In olden days, we used to call this as a firefighter. So nowadays, let's say business user who works in a plant, who works in a supermarket, they are the business users. They will have their access, whatever access they wanted, they will get it. But especially for IT people, IT consultants will be there. Okay, consultant, SD consultant, finance consultant. What they do, they will support the business users for the respective module. But they don't be having a complete end-to-end access inside their ID in production. They will have in production, especially in a real time, these consultants, SD, finance, all these consultants, they will have only display access in a production. They don't be having a complete or SD or finance access. Why? We are not giving. If we give a complete access, that will create a SOD issues, audit compliance SOD issues. That's why we don't give complete access. What these people will do generally, in people who is working in a plant, in a material department, if he has any related issues, he will raise a request to IT consultant, IT consultant. IT consultant, he has to resolve those issues, but he has only display access. How he can resolve that issue? If he raise a request to security team, we can give access, but giving that access to his own ID is a conflict. So that's the reason SAP what they brought it. Instead of using his own ID, what we do, we will create some temporary firefighter IDs. We will create firefighter IDs for each and every module. Something like this one. For MM, FF underscore MM1, MM2, MM3, something like that. FICO, FF underscore FICO 1, 2, 3 or something like that. So SD, FF underscore SD1, SD2 or something like that. Okay. So these are the temporary IDs. These IDs will be there. This MM firefighter ID will have access to complete MM access. These IDs will have a complete FICO access. These IDs will have a complete SD access. Like our security basis, ABAP also will have firefighter IDs. Let's say James. He has his ID, but he don't have access to complete for the required transactions. For getting the required access to his ID is a SOX compliance. It will create, because of SOX compliance, we can't give it. So in that case, what he can do, he can go and use any of these firefighter IDs which belongs to MM. He can jump from his own ID to firefighter ID. So when he jump into the started using this firefighter ID, what GRC system will do, whatever he is doing using the tree code list, it will track. Whatever he is using, he might be using ME21, ME28, different transactions, it will track it. If he is using any conflicting transaction system for every ID, we will have one owner and controller will be there. So if he is using any conflicting access, it will give alert to the controller. Okay, something like that. We are giving access, temporary access to persons with a emergency access, so with a firefighter ID in a regulated manner. So it means even though this ID is having a complete MM access, he can't use whatever he want. Like he can't disturb the business. Like conflicting T codes, he can't use it. If he started using, system will track. Not only tracking what the T codes he is using, inside the T code, what changes he is doing, maybe which purchase order is changing, what the purchase PO he is approving, that details also system will track the record. So it means in GRC we have a concept called emergency access management. Any user, if they want access to their own ID, if it is not giving any SOD issues, we can give it. If he is having any SODs, what he can do, IT users especially, they can use a firefighter ID. They can jump from their own ID to firefighter ID. When they started using this firefighter ID, whatever the T codes he is using, system will track that list. Inside the T code also, what changes he is doing, that will also system will track. That's the main thing here, this component. Now I'll talk about this component. If you see here, in this component, in emergency or extraordinary situations, emergency access management is a capability of GRC access control, enable a users to perform activities outside their roles under provision, like a supervision. So a temporary ID assigned and it will be provided access to him. For example, if any employee is injured and another employee has to perform the injured employee duties, in this case, what he can do, he can apply a firefighter ID. He can use that because he may not be having another employee access or what the same access he is having. We can't give the same access, other employee access to this temporary employee. So what this tool will do, it will track, monitor, log activities performed by using this firefighter ID. Okay, and we can also automate a firefighter task, like who for every ID will have one owner and controller will be there. Who would be the owner? Who would be the controller? That also we can define here. And also the log report. Once James might have used the FF_MM firefighter ID, if he comes out of that ID, GRC system will send the list of T codes executed by James to the controller of this particular ID. For every firefighter ID, one owner and controller will be there. Owner is the person who will approve. If anybody want access to that firefighter ID, controller, he will get the log report, whatever the T codes he has executed, user executed by using that ID. Okay, so the main thing what we are doing here, first component is a completely rule-based tool. Based on the rule set, we can find out the risks which are there in a user level, role level, object level, profile level, or something like that. The second component is emergency access management, nothing but a firefighter. So instead of giving a conflicting access to his user ID, we are giving a one temporary firefighter ID to the users. By using the temporary firefighter ID, user will finish his responsibilities, whatever the request he got it from business. But when he is using the firefighter ID, whatever he is doing by using that ID, whatever the T codes he is executing, whatever the changes he is doing inside the T code, that complete data will be tracked and it will be sent to the controller of that ID. Let's say if sometimes user got a firefighter ID, if we might be using ME21 and 28, immediately one alert can be going to controller. He is using a firefighter ID and running the conflicting access, something like that. So nothing but we are making access regulations here. So this is about the second component. We have another two more components. We'll talk about those two components later. So the main thing you might be understand what is the concept of GRC. So GRC mainly talk about the good governance practice, SOX, and this SOX talks about segregation of duties. Nothing but we cannot blindly give access to anybody, whatever the access they wanted. We have to provide access in a regulated manner. Even sometimes what will happen, user will raise a request, his manager will approve. We cannot blindly find the roles and assign. We have to go to GRC team tool, and from there we can check if I give this access to James, is it going to give any SOX compliance issues or something like that. We can find it. So if we don't have these tools in ECC, we don't have this option. Blindly we'll find the roles, we will assign to the user. He will enjoy after getting access. If somebody want to spoil the business, they can spoil the business by removing some financial jail account data or something like that. If we have these type of tools, we can regulate. So in GRC, as I mentioned you, we have a couple of components like access control. In the access control, we have 4 components: access risk analysis, business role management, and access management, and access requests. So these 4 components we are going to talk in our entire content, post content. So I'm trying to explain what is there in each and every component. I just mentioned 2 components. So remaining components I'll cover it in the next session. And then here in GRC, it's not like ECC. I'll strictly say that please practice in the same day. This is demo today. That's fine. Just go through this PPT. I will send it to you all. But once we started technical things in a system, it's not like ECC security. So complications will be there. You need to practice, then only you will understand what is happening. Without doing a practice, GRC, it's not like cakewalk. So you have to practice enough practice you should have. Then only we can improve our technical things in a GRC. So I asked Ravi also to make system arrangements. So by the next class we will get a system and we'll continue GRC one by one topics. I'll cover a GRC configuration as well as a support part, so that main thing when you go into market, people will ask you whether you worked in a configuration or support. It's good if you have a configuration knowledge. I'll show you how to do the configuration and the support part also. So the people who works in a SAP Security, only in SAP Security, if they learn a support, GRC support, that's enough. But if you want to be in a GRC side also, it's good if you learn a GRC configuration also, so that you'll have more opportunities when you keep your profile in the market. Okay,